when I joined RedHook, going from lead guitar to bass was hard. Like learning the songs, no issues. But then when I had to start thinking like, hey, instead of like when you're a guitarist, yeah, you just play power chords, you can play some lead. It's all about the melody, like
Uh-huh.
putting some cool effects. Like me, like my whole approach was I was obsessed with the edge.
Well, I appreciate your time, man. I'm Adam, by the way.
Nice to meet you, Adam. I'm Ned.
Nice to meet you, Ned. This is about you and your journey in music, and we'll talk about the new Red Hook album, if that's cool with you.
Hell yeah, sounds great.
Amazing. So, I always start off with born and raised. Obviously, the band's in Australia. Where were you born and raised?
Yeah, it's still in good old Australia. So, I was born in a little town called Wagga Wagga. Honestly, was only there for a couple of weeks.
Oh,
But spent all
okay.
my yeah. So, but hey, that's where I was born. It's a great
Right,
name,
right,
so I have to
exactly.
mention it. But after that, basically came down to Sydney. I've been here all my life. Yeah. So
Okay,
technically,
cool.
I'm a Sydney cider.
How far is Wagga Wagga from Sydney? Is it quite a distance or not really?
It's a fair bit of distance. I think it was like 8, 10 hours roughly around that. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Okay. Like, so were your parents were what, living there until basically you're born and then were like, oh, all right, we're gonna move down to Sydney?
Yeah, so my parents are actually so I'm the firstborn here in Australia, but my parents and all my relatives are actually all Serbian. Around that time was former Yugoslavia, of course.
Uh-huh.
They came to Australia and were kind of exploring the country, trying to figure out where they wanted to stay. Then surprise, surprise, I kind of came into the fold. So
Oh,
they're
sure.
like, they were like, all right, maybe for now, let's find a place just to kind of home base until I was born, and then the next step was to get to a major city, to Sydney, basically. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. So, do you come from a musical household at all? Like, are your parents artistic or musical or anyone musical in your family?
No, not really. It's quite interesting. So like my dad's an electrician and like all my relatives they're all laborers or kind of in that field. I kind of got introduced to like music and art like I kind of experienced it myself. Um just kind of like grew up watching a ridiculous amount of TV, loved movies, loved TV shows and kind of got introduced to music from soundtracks, strange
Oh,
enough.
really? Like, do you remember like an early soundtrack that you really liked?
There was two. There was two. I was a sucker for 80s cartoons. So I'm the Transformers movie, the animated one.
Uh-huh.
I was hooked by that soundtrack because it just like one, it was just so 80s rock. But then secondly, how it worked with the movie, it just was so cool. Like to find a way to have those songs, not just to be standalone songs, to find a way to kind of work with a certain scene just blew my mind.
Mhm.
And then the same thing with the Ninja Turtles movie, the original one. It was so dark.
The live
And I
action
fell in
one?
love with that. Yeah, the live action one, the
Oh,
OG
man,
with the
I love those ones. Those are like my
oh,
yeah, with the new one, I have a 7-year-old, and with the new one coming out, like, I'm like, "We gotta watch the first 2 Ninja Turtles were so good with Splinter and, Shredder and everything."
yep. You kind of watch it back now, you're like, wow, that was a bit dark and a bit rough for our age, but man, it was just there was such good films. Number one is still gonna be the best. Two was still good. Like you can't say no to a bit of ninja rap, but
Right, right, right. Is the first one where they like Shredder has that warehouse and they're like all the like skater punk kids? Yeah, that was such a cool concept.
that was it. Oh, like for a while, like I know they were the bad guys, and you don't want to be, but like I thought that warehouse was so cool. Like they're playing video games and everything. I'm like,
You're
man, I
right.
want to be there.
Yeah, exactly. I gotta go back and listen to those soundtracks. I totally I obviously I remember the Ninja Rap with Vanilla Ice, but I don't really remember what was off that first one.
Yeah, it's like I just remember like it was mostly like there was a couple of like proper songs, like, with vocals, structure and everything, but like a pop structure, I mean. But
Hmm.
there was a lot of tracks that were more just kind of like, you know, like more like a produced kind of track, maybe orchestral in a sense. Those were songs I loved as well. Like, the scene where, yeah, funny enough, we're talking about in the warehouse, maybe, the shredders walking through that really powerful dun dun. It was kind of like a very rhythmic. I think I remember it's kind of like dun 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 dun. Like that was in the soundtrack, and I just loved that because it was just like, I don't know, something about it was really powerful and just really caught my attention.
Uh-huh. But were you like interested in, I mean, maybe prior to being in a band, like scoring films or scoring for television,
No,
or
straight.
not at
It's
all?
that's that. No, no. I think it was just like a nice gateway. Like I would listen to those soundtracks, and because like my parents never really listened to much music, I had to learn everything myself, and I kind of went from those soundtracks, and then the popular songs, like, oh, here's the artist, and then going from those artists to other artists, and then I kind of experienced more popular music. So it was like a step by step from soundtracks to pop to then getting onto good old rock music.
Okay, very cool. And what about like
Yeah.
an instrument as far as that? Like, did you play anything at an early age?
No, I didn't actually pick up an instrument until like my early teenage years. Like, geez, I think it was like in grade 7. Yeah, grade 7, I picked up a guitar. That was my first instrument.
Okay. And did you play that for a while? I mean, obviously you play bass now, but was guitar something that you did like a majority and then you kind of fell into bass, or how did that kind of happen?
Yeah, actually, guitar is was my main instrument. Like I started off with that and pretty much based most of my career as a guitarist. All the previous bands I've been in, I was the guitarist, mostly doing lead. That was kind of like my go-to. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
I didn't
interesting.
fall
And
into
then
bass.
yeah,
Sorry.
so I was gonna say, yeah. So when you fell into was bass kind of a thing that you were like, or you were probably just gonna say this and I cut you off, like something with, oh, this band needs a bass player, and you're like, oh, I get, I could figure out bass.
That's exactly it. Yeah. Funny enough, Craig, the guitarist, I think he put a post up on Facebook saying, "Hey, we're looking for a fill-in bassist," and I wasn't in a band then. I'm like, you know what? Like, I did a bit of bass work in a previous band, and I was like, you know what? I think I know well enough. And I messaged him, and I'm like, "Hey, do you need a bass player? Like, I'm not great, but I'm willing to learn." Um, it just fell from there. Funny enough, but yeah,
Wow.
luckily,
Okay.
knew the basics of knowing how to play a stringed instrument, so that helped.
Oh, and if you could play lead guitar, I'm sure when you came up with bass riffs, you kind of could base a lot of bass, off of what you were playing as a lead guitar player. Or
Oh
not
man,
really. So it doesn't
not
even like really
no,
translate. Dude, I'm so bad with that. I'm a huge music fan, but I can play power chords on guitar.
no, it's all good. No, honestly, it was such a like when I joined RedHook, going from lead guitar to bass was hard. Like learning the songs, no issues. But then when I had to start thinking like, hey, instead of like when you're a guitarist, yeah, you just play power chords, you can play some lead. It's all about the melody, like
Uh-huh.
putting some cool effects. Like me, like my whole approach was I was obsessed with the edge. Like all about the delays, the reverbs. I was that kind of guy. So I was all about just bringing these layers and textures into songs. So when I went to bass, it's like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. I have to, follow the drums, make it really tight, making sure I'm playing the notes perfectly with the right rhythm. It was such a change. It took a while to really understand it and kind of hone my skills on that. So it was definitely good. It's like going from automatic to manual in a sense.
Oh,
So
sure. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't know if like just because you knew you could play lead, you probably just knew certain scales, like, okay, this was gonna go together, like to write a bass line. But I didn't think about the fact that you're driving the band with the drums. Like if the bass and the drums aren't tight, then the band just it doesn't sound as nearly as good as it could.
100%. But yeah, you're actually right though. No, like the theory that I had to learn, it definitely did translate well. That part, like when I'm helping writing songs, or if I have to learn a riff that, because nearly all the music I had to learn for Red Hook was all by ear. So knowing those scales from guitar definitely helped out a lot.
Hmm. So you started on guitar, but you said grade
Mhm.
7, and how quickly do you like join a band or start a band? And it sounds like you, I mean, you did a lot of music and were in many bands prior to joining Red Hook. So I'm kind of curious, like how you progressed, or what other bands you were in, maybe, or stuff that you had going on prior.
I think I think I joined my first band like maybe a year and a half after properly learning guitar. So it was pretty quick. I
Hmm.
just remember like, um, yeah, I think I saw an ad, and this, oh God, it is so long ago. These days now you just go on Facebook or Instagram or just any social media and you can find a band. And then
Right.
we had old music publications like magazines and like newspapers. Um, we had a local one around my area, so I can find local bands, and one was looking for a guitarist. And it was the style of music I wanted to do. Like I just like, oh, okay, they want to sound like the Deftones. I'm joining. So did that straight away. And like from then, I was just kind of jumping from band to band. Like it was a lot of local bands playing like the local halls, maybe lucky enough to play a pub or two. But that was like to barely no one.
Hmm.
When you're a small band in Australia, it's tough. And I did that for quite a few years before I kind of got lucky with I played in a post-hardcore kind of band, very like Amity Affliction, Silverstein, that vibe.
Hmm.
Um, they were called Caulfield, which was we that was the first time I kind of tasted like we got to tour all over Australia. We were lucky to get signed to an independent record label here as well. That was really, really cool. So that was kind of like my first proper taste, but that didn't happen until like, geez. So I joined like my first band, like, grade 8. I think I was just like after high school. So it was quite a few years before joining a proper band, if that makes sense. Like maybe,
Right.
well, when I say proper, like a successful band to a degree.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so that was the first
Yeah.
band that it was after high school that you were in this band, and that's the one that started to, see some success as far as like, okay, we got signed, we're doing tours of Australia, like but even right after high school, that's still fairly fast to be in a band that's, doing something. Was that music always like, did you end up going to university or college or anything for music or do that, or was it like you were in these bands and this one happened to start kind of succeed, so you just stayed in that on that track?
Yeah, yeah, I never studied music. My kind of extent to knowledge was just like getting guitar lessons and just learning by myself. I never had the drive to kind of go to university or anything.
Mhm.
I think I respect people that do it, and there was a time I'm like, oh, that would be kind of cool to do, but I think just because I was always in a band or always in the scene, I kind of just continued on that path. I was
Mhm.
happy enough to, learn things day by day, finding shows to go watch, go to play, or write music, practice. Um, yeah, sorry, I think I kind of
No, 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 no.
waffled off
That no, no,
the
that's
original
that's what this
question.
is about. I'd rather hear that's part of, you know what I mean? But like, I'm just so it sounds like though. Did you ever like? I mean, because you joined bands, and is that kind of been the path of what your journey has been more like? Oh, this friend's looking for a guitar player. Okay, I'm going to join this band. Like, or was it like you never? Did you ever like start a band from scratch and then move from there, or was it all mainly like word of mouth and finding other artists that needed people to play?
Most of the bands I joined, I think, funny enough, actually, Caulfield was the first one that I actually made.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
it was yeah, I just found like a bunch of other musicians from other bands that I toured with or did shows with, and we're all starting to getting into the post-hardcore scene. So we made this band together and kind of built it from scratch. So it's funny that the first band that started from scratch was the one that was the first taste of success, which was really
Yeah, no,
cool.
that is really cool. So then, yeah, so that's the band. How long did you do Caulfield for? Was it a while?
It was only like for 3 years.
Still a pretty
And
good
then
amount of time.
it was good. It was good. But I had an opportunity to join another band that again, um this was a band like I was absolutely obsessed with. This was the band before RedHook. So I joined a band called Awaken I Am. Which yeah, I was absolutely obsessed with because like when I was in Caulfield, I was really into post-hardcore, your Silverstein, Amity Affliction, the Used, so like emo
Mhm.
post-hardcore I was obsessed with.
Yeah.
But then it progressed to the bands like Emarosa, Dance Gavin Dance, Seosin. Like I
Yeah.
was absolutely
Heavier.
obsessed. Oh, like the first record, the self-titled one, I just fell in love. Like I want to do that style of music. That's what I've been looking for. And Awaken I Am, they weren't called that then, but they were a band in Brisbane. And I was like, man, if I had the chance, if I could join, I'll do it. And I kept annoying them every time a band member left. I'm like, hey, can I join? Can I join? And then finally, and then funny enough, this is the first time I got introduced to bass. Was like, hey, our bass player left. Would you want to play bass? I'm like, done. The next day I bought a bass,
Oh
learnt it,
wow.
and then did that for a little while until the guitarist left, and I just went from bass straight to guitar. So
Oh, so then you play guitar in the band for a while.
yeah, that was still like my chosen. Like I didn't really fall in love with bass then. I was just more just like thankful to be in the band. So when the opportunity came up to go back to guitar, I'm like, I'm gonna do it because that's one of the things I loved about that band was their leads are freaking amazing, like so good. So I was like, nah, I got to play lead in this band. So
That's how long did you do that band for? Or how long were you playing with them?
that was the longest band I was in. I think like 6 years, roughly around that. Um, and that was maybe the most successful band I was in before I joined RedHook. That was like we got signed to Victory Records. We got to tour America a few times, which I missed terribly. I can't wait to come back. By the way, I gotta say that. Um, and
I
toured
mean,
Australia
getting
quite a
signed to
few times.
Victory, I mean, that's huge, right? I mean, especially in
Yep.
that genre and just the bands that were on that label. And I mean, back it was like, I grew up with the emo hardcore scene. That was what I would listen to growing up. And it was like if a band was signed to Victory, it didn't matter. It was like, who are these people? You know what I mean? It was like that type of deal. Or if Drive Through signed a band, you're like, oh,
Mm.
I know it's going to be this sound, so I'm going to go check them out. Or there's a handful of labels that you you just went to check out, and like to have Victory. I mean, that must have been such a massive moment for you all.
Oh, it was a huge tick on like the bucket list. I couldn't believe it because like we had my first record out. We signed independently in Australia through that, and then we were ready to do our next record. But in between that, released a single, and we decided, oh look, we'll shop it around, see what people thought. And Victory come back on like, hey, we really like this. Let's talk more. I'm like, wait, the same label that had once again Silverstein, Atreyu, A Day to Remember, like Taking Back Sunday.
Uh-huh.
Like I could
Taking Back
go
Sun,
on. Oh my
yeah.
God. I was like, yes, let's talk. And they were just like, it was kind of interesting. It was around the time, like, I don't know if you remember much where like some of the bands from Victory were kind of
Oh
fighting with
yeah.
the label.
Yeah, without Taking Back Sunday and A Day to Remember specifically.
Yeah. And it was like, man, like to be on this label would be amazing, but like this is happening. What do we do? And we just said, screw it. Like, the chats we had with them, it was just like, this is going to work. And like, luckily it did for us. We were able to release the record through Victory, so it was able to go, like it was available in America, and it gave us some opportunities to play some pretty wicked tours in America. So
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of I mean, those two bands specifically were fighting because they signed deals that weren't in their, I don't know. I mean, it sucks what happened to those bands for sure, but it was like the contract was there. You could, there's like lawyers could have
yep.
gotten involved way prior. I mean, yeah, but I guess when you're 18 to 21, you're like, fuck it, I just want to get signed, especially the victory. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
we got the lawyers in and go, let's just make sure. And yeah, we
yeah,
got a couple
probably
of
a
bit of
good
tweaking. It
move.
was fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. So you did that band for, you said 6 years, and did you end up leaving that band to join RedHook, or did they, did that band kind
Yeah,
of
I
dissipate,
left.
or?
The band's still going. I left the band. And I was having just a bit of a break. It's just a lot of things were happening around that time, and I just felt like needed to take a step back. I needed to refocus and figure out what was going on. It was hard because I was like, that period of time was the first period of time I was like doing nothing. Like I was, I'd pick up my instrument and play it, but it was like there was no reason. Like I'm not
Oh,
ready
so you
for a
didn't
gig
just
or like,
jump. Yeah, you didn't just jump into, it wasn't like RedHook was looking for somebody and you're like, oh, I don't know, maybe this band's not really for me now, or I've kind of run its course with it and I'm just going to jump over here. You left and didn't have another band. Like,
yeah, no, it was just
right. Yeah.
it was time. It was time. Yeah. I just felt like the direction they were going, and where I wanted to go was completely different.
Mhm.
So it was a hard choice. I was like, I have to do what's best, and like I actually thought my music career was over, and I was slowly accepting it. I'm like, I think this could be it. So I enjoyed what I call the normie life.
Okay.
You know, but worked a 9 to 5, and like just like I like to get my finances back up because I spent a lot of money with the band. And then like I think it was honestly only like less than a year later, that's when the opportunity came up, and I said, you know what, it'll be fun. Like it was like when they put the post up for someone to fill in, I thought, oh, they just need someone to do shows, and I just kind of just said, well, you know what, it would be fun to play some shows again, and there's like no kind of obligation,
Right.
see what
Probably not as
happens.
much pressure, obviously, as like a being in a band this is your full-time gig and that's, it.
Yeah,
But
exactly. But yeah, I just said screw it, let's give it a shot, and just kind of built from there, which was cool.
so you joined that band in like from just off the research I was doing, like around 2019 or so, or
Yeah, I
you were
think it was
earlier.
roughly 20. I think it was 2018, 2019. I remember it was for a Halloween show. So did that. And then we had a couple of little mini tours booked, and then sadly, COVID
COVID.
came in. Yeah. So that took a halt, but we were still chatting a lot. And then luckily, where we were based, we still had a few lockdowns, but sometimes they got lifted. So the periods when they got lifted, we were able to do some shows and tours. So I still got to do some touring with them as well, which was really cool.
Okay. So you did the first show, the Halloween show, and
Hmm.
obviously you did great, or you had a lot of fun too. And were they like, oh, we want you to keep coming back? Like, at what point were you kind of there? Were they like, you're in the band type deal? Like, or was that like a sit down thing? Like, I've interviewed another band. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but like they, a musician that kind of joined, like they had never even formally asked the guy who'd been in the band for like 10 years since. And it was like, like it wasn't
My
like, oh hey, do
God.
you want to join? It was like a given type deal, you know what I mean? Like he was there recording records, but it was like a kind of a given, instead of like, we've all decided we want you to join. It was like they just knew this person was going to be in the band, and they knew it as
Mm.
well. I don't know if that makes sense, but like at what point were you like, okay, I want to do this, I'll stay in this band, or this is the band I want to continue, to put my time into.
Didn't take long, to be honest. I think it was I think it was the next year, just before lockdown. Like we were doing we did this tour with the Amity Affliction. I was just like having a lot of fun. Like I'm
That's a
really
big
enjoying
tour.
playing bass. It was I couldn't believe it. They're like, hey, we're doing a couple shows with Amity. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say no to that.
Right.
A band that I absolutely adored and based part of my career on. I get to, support. I'm not going to say no, but like I just remember like I'm actually really enjoying playing bass. Everyone's great. I love the music. It was so different to what I used to usually listen to because I was still in my like Seos and Amorosa like melodic post-hardcore vibe. So RedHook was such a different thing for me, but I was hooked by it. I was like, this is really, really cool. It was so much fun to play live. And I think everything like I remember it was like the second or third show, and I was like, I go, I hope they asked me. I actually just said in my head, I'm like, man, I hope they asked me to like officially join. I should maybe just like put little hints out there. So like every time there's an opportunity, I'll be like, hey, like, I'm keen for more. I'm keen for more. Some of their friends would be around. I'm like, quick, you go tell them like I'm interested. And I remember it was during one of the lockdowns. They go, hey, we're gonna have a Zoom meeting. So it was a digital version of sitting down. They're like, hey, we'd love you to join. So thankfully, like I think it was a year, 2 years in, and I was made officially a member.
Okay, that's amazing. And
Yeah.
did you record then with them on like like the bad decisions or anything like that? Move from there forward in the new album.
I didn't put my stamp in until it was I can't remember which song it was. Low budget horror. So
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't part of the recording process for the EP and some of the singles. I got to be there for it, but I was still kind of the touring member. So even though I was really trying to put my stamp on, help out as much as I can, the creative side I didn't want to mess around with unless they asked me.
Uh-huh.
And that didn't get like I got asked after I joined, which I thought like it totally made sense. I thought that was perfect. So yeah, the first track I got featured on was Low Budget Horror.
Okay. What was that like? I mean, to then go in and record with this band, I mean, you probably built, obviously, at that point, you've been playing with them for a while. So going in, was it just like, oh, cool, we've been writing these songs together anyway?
Um, yeah, no, I think you got it right. Yeah, like I still got to be part of the writing process and everything, even for low budget. Um, Luckily, like the first time, Craig, our guitarist, he's a phenomenal producer and um, he records a fair few of our music. Um, I got to start off my recording career with the band with him. And so it was just Craig and I, and it just felt so smooth and super relaxing. I think it was, I got pretty lucky and kind of got like gently put into the process. It was really cool to see how he works. But after that, then, we started, doing the album and we went with Stevie K, which was different. But luckily, I know him well and he made the process super easy as well.
That's amazing. And when did you guys start working on this album?
Funny enough, it was around the same time as Low Budget. Um,
Oh,
we always had that concept in mind. Like we didn't plan for the record. Our kind of like thought process is we just keep writing. We're always writing songs. And like Low Budget is on the record, and like a lot of the tracks were kind of almost there while we were finishing off that one song. So we didn't even like, I think we decided to do the album when we looked at the amount of songs we had written and how much we liked and go, oh, maybe we can actually do an album right now. We were like,
oh,
yeah, let's do it.
really?
This is great.
So, so you guys were just recording music, recording song, writing and recording, and then it was like, oh wow, there's like a, a lot of songs. Plus, there's kind of like a through line here. Let's
Hmm.
make it an album.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Like we looked at all the songs we had. So we had a really good collection of songs and we listened to it and like this blends really well. It had a nice story to it and like a nice theme and like this, I'm like, okay, I think like it wasn't even like we didn't even plan it, which was awesome. Like you see bands that plan records and they struggle trying to get it to be cohesive, but because we're just a creative band and we just want to keep writing, we were just lucky and it was ready to go.
That's quite amazing. Were you like having a lot of songs? Was that hard? Did you guys all sit down and kind of try to piece together what would be like, okay, we want these songs on the album. This makes sense to actually make it an album now that we have a ton of songs.
Um, it got more tougher in the end because we decided that like we were going to record every song anyway. And then when we kind of got close to the end of the process, that's when we're like, okay, which tracks are going to be on the record? And that's when it got a little tough. We didn't know, like there were so many tracks that we absolutely like. Actually, we love all the tracks that we recorded, and like I think we said it a few times, but like there's actually still like some tracks that didn't get to be put on the record that we love just as much that might come out soon. You know,
Ah,
yeah, just little tidbit there. Could be soon. You don't know.
I love that. That's awesome. Well, I'm excited for that. I love the song that you guys Imposter, the one that has yours truly on it. I've had them on my show before, and that's just a cool song. The music video is so twisted. Like I was kind of like cringing about like two-thirds of the way through. I'm like, okay, I gotta fight through this. Like when he's eating the sandwich, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that scene well. Colin is awesome. We got in touch with him because like we've all worked with him before in previous projects, and RedHook is just famous for like you would have seen with all our clips. Like we seem to be we're horror fans, and we like to incorporate that in our film clips. And Emmy had this awesome idea, which was the kind of like mutant creature. And Colin's like, oh my God, this sounds exactly like Jennifer's body and The Fly. I'm in. So we just decided to go, all right, let's put these two movies in the form of this film clip. And it just worked perfectly for the theme of the song. Jeez. I'm just thinking about that bread scene. I was like, I was there for that scene, but like, I didn't watch it. I'm like, I can't. I know it's not real, and I can't remember what they put in. It was some sort of jelly or something, but I was like,
but he like pulls out like a finger or something from the I was kind of doing one of these.
Yeah.
He pulls like a finger out of his mouth. I'm like, oh, or even when she's in the shower and then the guy comes in, he's like looking at like she's shedded her skin or something like that. Like it was really a very cool concept. But like, seeing some of those things, like, damn, like they did a great job with this video.
We had a amazing visual effects girl come in, and she just got the brief perfect. The skin was really cool. Like she showed us the process. She was like in the morning of day one, she's like, hey, check this out. And like she would get Emmy's arm and like she just put everything on. It's like, all right, I'm gonna do this like shedding skin. And she started scraping it off, showing her process. I was like, by the time she was done, I'm like, oh, whoa, this looks real. She's like, wait till you see what I do with this. And we saw the scene with the shower. I'm like, oh God, perfect.
Oh yeah, but, it's such a cool video.
I'll never forget. Like, we had a fair few reaction videos on YouTube and everything. I was just like, oh, and some of the reactions is like, oh man, this is like a bad like zombie film. I'm like, yep, sorry.
They're like, then it worked. This did exactly what we wanted it to.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And so you said you guys have maybe some songs coming out, and then as far as I think you're doing a festival coming up, what else do you guys got going on?
For right now we've got a couple of months break, and we're actually starting to write again. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, the creative juices are flowing. A couple of songs are already kind of balling up. They sound wicked. And anytime we've got time off, we always find opportunities to write music. So we've got a couple months to do that. And then, we're kind of doing like the festival season here in Australia. So we've got Yours and Ours Festival. This is a festival down in a place called Wollongong, a beautiful kind of coastal town. Insane artists playing, like the Descendants are playing.
Yeah.
Oliver Tree, and a lot of cool Australian acts. And then one or two more Australian festivals with a lot of Australian acts. Actually, one in Adelaide I'm really excited for. Suicidal Tendencies are playing.
And no way.
Oh, I cannot wait. I remember seeing them at this festival we had in Australia called Soundwave, which had like Plus 44, Deftones, but Suicidal played, and I never heard the band before. My friend's like, come watch them, trust me. And it was the coolest thing. So I'm going to be watching them at that show. And if the rumors are true, I know he's done a couple of shows, but Ben Wyman from the Dillinger Escape Plan, um, he might be at this. And if he does, I'm done because like I love Dillinger.
Dillinger's,
So
that's
and
killer,
then
man.
oh man. And then to top it off, yeah, we've got this touring festival in Australia and Post Malone's playing, and I'm like, yep, that's the way to end the year. Thank you.
Yeah, I saw that. So that whole tour goes through all those cities.
Mhm.
There's three.
Yeah,
So
it's
that's
sorry.
crazy. That's awesome.
It's really cool. It's not it's a really interesting festival. It doesn't go on the major towns. I think the only major place is really kind of like in Western Australia, but you know, the one in New South Wales, it's in Canberra, which is in the ACT. So there's not even technically a show in my area. Up
Yeah,
in
Australia is so
Queensland,
massive. So like to
I know.
tour there, I mean, you have to fly, I would imagine.
Oh, we fly. We used to drive a lot, and honestly, to drive from one venue, like from one place to another, oh man, it would take like 14 or 16 hours. It was exhausting. You'd have to drive through the night. You'd be careful if you drive through the night, you might hit kangaroos.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it's not safe. Especially if you drive to Melbourne, there's a lot there. It's not a good time. So
Oh
I'm
my
thankful that
gosh.
we just fly now. I'd rather just have 4 hours sleep and get on a plane than not sleep and drive overnight.
Oh, 100%. So that tour goes through cities that don't usually get, I mean, Perth is big, but like the other three
Mm.
aren't as big of cities. Or maybe Perth isn't
The-
big. I just know the name.
It's like it's not the majors, like it's not Melbourne, it's not Sydney, it's not even like Brisbane. It's more like so it's like the Gold Coast, the ACT. I think the one in Victoria is just a bit further down from Melbourne City, so it's gonna be massive. But like these festivals kind of go outside of the main areas, which I think
Mhm.
is really cool because it encourages like other communities and other scenes to kind of come together, and like these bigger towns like Melbourne can come down and see how beautiful these other places are.
Yeah, that's really rad. I mean, that lineup is so, it's
Mm.
all over the place. It kind of it's just like a festival lineup, a true festival. You have like, Post Malone and Dermot Kennedy, and then you guys are on there, and just like the spectrum is so wild. And to be able to tour with that, like, I mean, Post Malone is so big. I mean, to be able to be on 4 dates with him, even though his sound doesn't sound like RedHook, but like just kind of that the amount of exposure you guys will get just at those festivals alone is huge. Just to see your name on there, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've been pretty lucky in the last couple of years. We've played more like a fair few festivals that are kind of like left of field, where we're like, wouldn't say like the token metal band, but we're like one of the heavier bands on there. And it's really worked well. Like I remember there's a festival here called Groove in the Moo, which is kind of similar to Spilt Milk, which we're doing,
Mhm.
where it's such like this like the one that we played at. We were once again like it was like the heaviest band was us and Polaris. That's it. Everyone else was more like in the indie scene. So all these kids that came in, like, oh, I've never heard this band before, and like have fell in love and came fans of RedHook. And like we did a red headline tour not too long ago, and those fans from Grooven came in. It's like, hey, we don't listen to this music, but we're hooked now. Like it's really cool. People think like, um, oh, we got to play the festivals with the bands that are similar to us. It's good most of the time, and we still do a lot of those festivals, but it's really good to do those left of field ones because you can. There's a little big market. There's a lot of kids who've never heard this style of music, and you get to show it to them, and
Yeah, and
they
what you
get
guys
hooked.
are and what you guys are doing isn't just straight up like metal or rock. It's like the production aspect of the songs is really unique. And I feel like nowadays, I mean, those lineups are because when I was growing up, it was like if you like punk, you could only like punk, right? I mean, it was like you're kind of just like you wouldn't want to tell your friend like, oh hey man, like yeah, this is cool, but I'm also kind of listening to like the pop radio station as well. Like I feel like nowadays, like no one really cares. It's like, yeah, I like Beyonce and I also like, Fiddler or something. It's like just the scope is I feel like the genre thing is so blended now that no one really gives a shit if you're they'll like you because they like the music, not because of the genre that you're in. If that makes any
Oh,
sense.
no, 100%. And that's the great thing about this band as well, is we listen to so much different styles of music. Like our main thing is we want music that is heavy and with heaps of energy. Like that's definitely the main thing you'll always get from us, no matter what. But we'll put in a hip hop beat. We'll put in some pop melodies that we want
Mhm.
to. We'll put in whatever weird production. Like, oh, did you listen to Psych vs. Psych? That is like a Gabbacore song or something, like hardstyle beat. We love
Yeah,
that stuff. Like, and I'm so thankful that we get to do that kind of stuff. And I think it translates so well. And I think that's why we're able to do all these festivals, because it's not like, oh, they're just a heavy band. They can go, oh, wait
mhm.
a minute, they could be, oh, they're a pretty cool pop band as well. Or like we play with the dance acts as well. It's awesome. I love it. And
That's
like
so
you're right
cool.
as well. It's the old days of like, oh, I just listen to punk. Oh, I just listen to this or whatever. Not anymore. Like I listen to so many styles. Like I looked at my Spotify playlist and I'm like, oh man, what am I listening to this week? I don't even know.
Right, right. Yeah. I feel like, and that's so cool to see that, instead of being so specific genre wise, it was like now, everybody listens to everything. If it's a good record, it's going to be, people are
Mm.
going to check it out no matter if they're into metal or pop or rap or whatever it may
They want the songs. They want good songs, and I love it.
be. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Ned, man. I appreciate your time. I know it's late where you are, so I don't want to keep you up all night. But I do
All good.
appreciate you
Coffee.
doing this. um, I have one more question for you before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Look, there's so much, but the one thing that pops in my head is if you truly love something, don't give up. Don't give up. Like you can see from the interview that I've been doing this for the longest of times. And like I know I even said like I thought I was going to give up for a little bit, but in my heart, I never wanted to give up. And um, my journey is extensive from many bands, from many styles of music. But the one thing that remained was I knew what I wanted. I wanted to make a career out of this. I wanted to make music my life. And I've played shows to no one. I've had many, friends and family go like, why do you keep doing this? All that negativity, but I knew in my heart this is what I wanted to do. And look, now I'm with an amazing band, with an amazing group of people, an amazing team with the management team and everything. Um, it took a long time, but I'll never take any of that back. And because I kept going with it, like you can see, good things can happen. So just remember, if you love what you do, don't ever give up and just work your ass off.